I was telling my roster this week, I was like, and our topic is personal finances. I'm realizing now that's like a super broad topic, so it's going to be a total party. Like,
Yeah.
so.
I had the same thought. This is going to be a free for all.
Yeah. But fun.
Where do we want to get started?
I've got some thoughts if
Nobody.
nobody else has some thoughts. I think Zach groaned.
Man, it's always such a struggle to get the energy up at the beginning of these things. It's
By
amazing.
the end, we have it all dialed in.
All right, Paula, I would love to hear your perspective on this. So where did your mind go around this topic? And what were your thoughts about bringing it here and what you wanted to touch on?
I think my thought originally went just down to the basics. Does everybody have the basics down? Because you can go really broad from there. But my mind immediately went to the basics because part of what we teach all the time is the P&L, which is the basics, and then we kind of go up from there. You?
Yeah,
And Zach just froze.
And we lost him. There he went. Come back to Zach. Okay, well, while he's figuring that out, oh, here's back.
and we're back.
You're back, yes. We didn't hear anything you said. You froze immediately.
Yeah.
Oh, you guys missed all the brilliant stuff that I said.
Cue us back up. What happened?
No, I was kind of thinking that too. I was just curious. I guess my question was when I was thinking about this topic is how many of us have a personal budget right now or review your personal finances outside of just like paying bills, looking at the checking? All right, got one hand raised.
We only have two on camera. Come on, y'all. Come back into the.
I know. Even in the chat box.
We
Or
won't
just
make you
unmute
talk if
yourself.
you don't want to talk, but we'd love to at least see if your hand is raised or not.
I want to like stare into your eyes. Like,
Audrey does. Okay, so we're a little bit mixed. We got a few that don't, a few that do. So for those of us that do, what was the point that you decided to start budgeting or looking at your personal finances and wealth?
For me, it was, I like to travel. I like to experience a lot of things, and I have dietary issues, so my grocery budget went up by a lot of money each month. So I had to just kind of budget, work out, how many gym memberships am I paying for? And I hit rock bottom a few years ago and almost couldn't pay a bill for a month. And I was like, okay, I don't want to do that again. So I worked on a budget, and yeah, it's been going great so far, and investments have started and multiple savings accounts, and everything's been up since then. So
That's awesome.
yeah.
It's a great story, and that's awesome what you were able to accomplish and start getting that budget going.
Yeah.
so you had an experience that made you realize like you were going to take action.
Yes. Yep. Kind of do like the Dave Ramsey envelopes, but in my bank account is what I do, like, digitally. So
Awesome. So we'll save that because I want to come back to that. I'm sure everyone else does too. We'll hear how you have that set up. How about you, Megan? What was the point you started?
I started budgeting. I started personally budgeting like a long time ago, but yeah, I think there's like budgeting sort of like, in teams. You get into a team, and at some point there's people who are like looking at the P&L, and there's people who are like where that's a verb, and there's people for who that's super passive. I think even though I was budgeting from super early on, it was kind of a passive activity, if that makes sense. Like I didn't really see always how to act on, or like to have like for there to be very many verbs in there. And I think I really got into like the verb piece, like what's the actionable things that this is telling me, like crazily, like seriously into it, like maybe 6 months ago. And I'll tell you that it was a mindset shift that I had that actually came from MAPS, which was like, I always heard things like wealth or net worth or, you know, investments. And I had investments. So, you know, there's just as a mental disconnect because you always hear that language. And I always thought, that's for like super wealthy people. Like you know, I'm not that person. Like I don't have a net worth. Like I don't have wealth, you know, whatever that means anyway, which, you know, that's a whole nother thing and how you have to define that for yourself. But I think it's probably like 6 to 12 months ago that I really started getting serious into, okay, it looked like everybody has net worth, you know, just like, what is yours? And took it from there. So yeah, and that took my whole budgeting and net worth tracking to like the next level.
That's awesome. I caught on earlier. I very much appreciate the passive side of it. Like I can relate to that kind of that feeling. I as well, though, until recently had the mind shift as far as making the money work for me and viewing it as a tool. So I have been passionate about budget. I've had a budget for a really long time. I understand that it's not about limiting expenses. It's about what do you want to spend your money on, which is priority, right? And you can kind of see what the priorities are in each person's life based on their spending. You can see it, right? And kind of see where that's at. The trouble with that is if you don't view it as a tool, then you don't view it as something that you can manipulate and make work for you, which is the whole part of like net worth and wealth building. And that leads to, then you get into trouble when you're no longer able to produce or replicate that same income, because now there's nothing there, right? There's no foundation. Like I just have it set up, money's coming in, it's going out. I view it as spend it all. And that's an issue and that's a problem. And the same thing, it wasn't until MAPS came along with the Life by Design and viewing it as a tool that it really started triggering with me that it's like, oh yeah, this is just another method to get what I want, not just to anonymously spend it. So I got a lot more purposeful just on what the budget looked like and where it was going. Who else would like to share?
I feel like I don't feel like I have it 100%. However, one thing my husband and I did is like he had his bank accounts when we got married. I had my bank accounts. And then we actually started another joint account. Well, we put each other on it, all of them. However, we have 3 checking accounts and 3 savings accounts. And so one thing we do is every paycheck, like a certain amount goes into different accounts for the mortgage, for insurance, for Cleveland Browns tickets, for, you know, saving, for vacation, for a new car. Like we have all of those set up so that each account's just kind of designated for something different. And then we put money into each of those every month, which I think makes it a lot easier for him not to spend everything he sees. So,
which brings up another great topic. How do you manage your money, you know, with another person, which is a whole conversation in itself.
Right. Which is probably the harder part of all of this.
Yeah.
Is how do you get your spouse on board with whatever it is you want to do financially?
As I was thinking about this topic for this week, and just how broad it was, I actually started thinking about Quantum Leap and how in Quantum Leap, like the messaging around money, because you know they do Quantum Leap really it's a lot of mindset, but it's also a lot of just like teaching you how to think about money. And so when you think about the way they do that, you know, Gary Keller always said, like, you have to know where to go. And I think the big aha I had was, A, everyone has net worth, but then B, like running your income, like we're all badass financial managers for our companies, but we don't think of our income as the same way we think of our company's income. And that's a shame, like we should. So to me, that was the aha. Like if you have a model, like if you have a financial track to run on, that's what they call it in Quantum Leap, then it becomes really easy. Like your decisions are made for you, just like when on the business side, you know, you're running your P&L and your budgets, your rainmaker comes in and wants to spend $2,000 on something, and that would put you out of your budget, then it's easy. Like your decisions are made for you. Like the budget model says, no, we don't have room for that. So no, like we can't do it yet. And if we just think about our lives that way, like what's our model, what's our track to run on? Not just a budget, which is a very passive thing, right? But like, how are we actually running our income like we run our team's finances? That is where you start to, I think, be like the actor, like the person in creating the verb inside your own financial world. And so that I think has been so powerful just for me personally in thinking through, like, what is the track to run? Like, what is the model? What should I be aiming for, either in profitability or whatever, and then budget modeling it out so that it's more of a verb than a, you know, noun. The budget is more of a verb than a noun. It's been huge for me. And so, okay, like if this is the track I'm going to run on, then all my decisions are already made. Kind of like Ray, we were talking about in our net worth club. You're like, how did you decide to do that? And I was like, well, it was just, that was my model. Like I was going for, you know, all of my, how many months did I want saved up and for personal, for business. And then like, what was I tackling next for net worth goal? And then all my decisions were just already made by that financial track I was running.
And Hannah, is that how you set up your bank account, was with like what Liz was saying, the like almost like an envelope system in it?
Yeah, pretty much the same as like the Dave Ramsey envelope system. Instead of cash, it's just in bank account. So I've got kind of one for just expenses, monthly bills, another one that has a $400 limit and a debit card with it, and it's for shopping, gym memberships, food, dining, you know, a certain amount of money a month, and then like 3 savings accounts. So two of the savings accounts are at different banks, and that's for a reason. So, but yeah, it's worked out pretty good. Some days it's not fun, it sucks, but I'm proud the next month. I'm like, okay, I did good. But you know, so.
It's funny how we'll set up roadblocks for ourselves to keep us from doing things like 2 different banks. So it's hard to transfer money back and forth, and it makes us think twice.
Yeah, exactly. Even though they're like a mile apart from each other and the office is between the two, it's still, I'm like, yeah, I'm not ever going to go there and access it. It's too hard. So
Straight out of Profit First.
yes.
Right. That book talks quite a bit in depth about making it as hard as possible to access the different points, right? Like going to a harder bank, setting up passcodes, all of the stuff that may prevent you from going into it.
It's a lot easier just going through the drive-thru, handing them a check from, you know, your other account that you're paid to. So, but what about like, I've got credit. I'm completely debt free other than my car. What are y'all do y'all do credit cards to build like airline miles? What is y'all's opinions and advice on that? Because I do have one, you know, it's like a $2,500 limit just to have, and it's security, or I'll travel with it and get some points and stuff like that. What's y'all's opinions and thoughts on that?
I went probably 10 years without credit cards because I was so anti-credit card. Like it's a total scam. And probably about 2 years ago, actually about the time I became a coach and I started traveling so much, I did start doing one for airline miles. And I'm very diligent about the way I use it. Like it's being used for my purposes. The bank will not benefit from me using it.
Yeah, so I have the Capital One Venture Card, which literally just gives you like points that you can use on either hotels or car rentals or airline miles. So it's not like specific to one airline or hotel chain. And then I have all of my monthly bills that I was allowed to put on there because like for some reason you cannot pay your electric bill with a credit card. But everything that let me, I had auto pay from that credit card. And then I had that exact amount auto paid from my bank account every month too. So everything's literally, I don't think about my bills ever, which is great for my like main bills, but it also means that I have to be more accountable to actually like monitoring that stuff every month and going over my actual budget. But it does make it less stressful. And I have like 1 million miles now. So
Yeah, some points. That's why everybody's like, man, I'm racking up points, you know, all summer, all during COVID. And they're like, I can't wait to, you know, use them next year, hopefully.
Yeah.
So that's where I'm like, okay, maybe I will get one.
Cash back because I don't like, for me, I feel like if I get points, and this is why they do it, right? Like, I'm like, oh, I have to spend them. Like, I feel pressured, and maybe I wouldn't have spent that money otherwise, you know, I would have like picked a different whatever. So I do straight cash back, and I made about $500 this year, and I pay it off every month. So it's just straight. I picked like the highest cash back I could find, and I do straight cash back.
yeah, Venture lets you do the cash back too. And then if we decide to like buy something random or whatever, I can also use those points to like pay down my credit card balance. So that's why I went with the Venture card, because it literally let me do whatever I wanted with the points that I was earning.
As long
I
as you
like
don't
the flexibility.
like Ray
Yeah,
said,
no.
like pay it off every month, then
Mm-hmm.
the bank never benefits, like Paul said.
Well, and that's the only thing I would push back and change anyone's mindset around that. I mean, the bank will always benefit if you're using it because they make money. I mean, that's why they have it, right? Even if everyone paid it off, they make money based just on transaction swipes.
Transaction fees. That's like the
Yeah,
They
to
wouldn't
make it like a
offer-
mutually beneficial relationship. Not-
Yeah, they're
Yeah,
not
they
getting.
wouldn't afford to give away miles if they didn't benefit.
And,
well, and the truth is most people carry a balance, so they're making a ton of money. I mean,
and that's their whole intention, is you're not going to be smart about how you use it. You're going to lose control, and then you're not going to be able to pay it off, which is why I despise them so much. Now, Zach, that point of view totally came from a merchant's mind. The fact that the merchant's paying for you every time you use the card. You can tell you were in that world.
Yeah.
I didn't even think about that until you said
So yeah, credit card, like when you think about it, can be used as a tool. And just like Gary Keller says, even with loans and stuff, there's appropriate times, like you said, where I think if you're going to get the mileage, the tickets, you're going to spend the money anyway. Yes. I just always get careful because it's like Vegas. It always wins, right? Like you hear people, it's like, oh, no, like I gamble and I make, no. Like it's just like, if not, they wouldn't be in business. So even if everyone paid them off, I promise you, based on the numbers, the banks would be all right. Like they still make their money off the cards, just the way it is.
Yeah.
It's why they make us do, there's a difference between debit and credit when we all know it comes out of our same account,
Yeah.
right? There's different charges that a lot of you probably don't know on the back end that the bank makes depending on what you select, which is why they have that on there.
I would say the other thing too with a credit card, because I do the same thing. We put everything on our credit card and then just pay it off every month to build your credit. So that when you are ready to buy a house or, you know, whatever your next purchase is, you have the credit ready for you.
as long as you pay it down, that's the main thing.
it is. It's all about discipline.
Yeah. Well, and I did want to circle back and to Liz's question. So how do you handle that with your spouse? Has anyone had those conversations? I've had one. So
Before you go there, Zach, how
Yeah.
many people on this call handle the money and their spouse doesn't really handle any of it? Just curious. Okay, go ahead, Zach.
well, anyone's welcome in to share. I just wanted to go back there because we got onto a really good topic, but I wanted to go back and answer Liz's question. it really comes down to the relationship, right? Like, and what is that fierce conversation that you have around that, and what does it look like? Our struggle was, it came to a point where it had nothing to do with trust or management. It came down to who had enough passion and energy and was willing to put in the willpower to work the budget and focus on it and be the bad guy at times, right? Because sharing that responsibility didn't work. So at some point, and this was just my perspective, our relationship, somebody had to kind of kneel and step back and be like, all right, you got it, right? Like, you take this over. Being a director of operations and in that role, naturally I pushed for that, no doubt. It was not fun. A lot of conversations about what that looked like. And this was just for me. What I did to set it up is, my wife and I do not share a bank account, which requires a lot of trust on both of our sides. The very specific reason for that is the money that we designate, or that she's able to spend, or she makes on her own, whatever that case is, I don't want the responsibility of knowing what she spent on it. And she enjoys very much having that pressure, and I don't want to ask. And my personality type, if I seen something across, like checking account budget, you catch me in the right mood, I'll be a jerk about it unintentionally, right? Like, I'll ask a question not meaning to be intrusive, but it will be, because I'll be asking like, hey, why'd you do that? So we found it's better for me not to know. I would rather not to know. I'd rather just, this is what we designated, be very purposeful about it, and you go do whatever you would love to do with that. And at any point we need to adjust or have that, she has that conversation. And again, I make it work. And for my own sake, I don't get into details, right? Like, I trust her as my partner. I chose her as my partner that we were going to do this. So I let her have ownership over. So she like, I need this for this, or what's going on. I make it work with very little questioning. That's my own sanity, because if not, I get in there and I don't ever want like this whole and like employee boss type like structure that I could accidentally slip into.
Especially like for you guys, I don't know, you know, some people might have this situation, but for you guys, if I understand right, like, she's not working, so she could also feel like she didn't own any money. So I love that you did that. Like, she's got an account that it's like, you know, she doesn't have to ask you for money or something. That's cool.
This is something, I don't know, I have kind of mixed feelings on. So my husband makes 3 to 4 times what I do. So he's also the spender. So I feel really bad coming back and being like, why did you order another thing off of Amazon? Because that's where most of the purchases come from, in all honesty. Like I don't feel comfortable like I can approach him with that, because it's like, he's the one who made most of the money. So like, it's a little bit hard for me. However, we do have conversations. And, you know, a lot of it comes back to, you know, his mentality is he wants to enjoy life. Like, he doesn't want to pinch pennies every day for 30 years and then, you know, not get, like, basically not enjoy 30 years just so that he can enjoy the ones after. So it's kind of like, I feel like it's finding this balance. When we have reached a place too where like any big purchases, you know, we talk to each other about before we make them. However, there's probably like, if I added it up, there's probably a lot of money that goes out every month just to random Amazon stuff. And some of it too, it's like for the house. So it's like, how can I say, no, I don't want you to buy, you know, bookshelves or whatever it was that, you know.
But who's ever said that that's wrong?
So that what's wrong?
Purchasing and doing that amount.
Yeah, I mean, we haven't had a conversation that it's wrong. Like, I've put together a budget, I've looked at what we spend, and, you know, when it comes down to that, just the random stuff, it's kind of big. However, like, yeah, I just don't feel like I can ask him to cut that back.
This is where
Well, and
this is where I feel like it's so important that you have a budget and you guys make that budget together. And you know, like, this is fun money and this is future money. And so that you guys, you feel like you have that balance and yet you know what the parameters are.
yeah, that's what I was going to say, Paul. I love you share that, because I don't like the negative connotation that comes with a budget where instantly a lot of people think like, oh, it's penny pinching. Like, no, you literally, if 100% of your funds you wanted to go out to eat, God bless you. Like, budget it and say 100% of my stuff is going out to eat. My thing is about being purposeful with the allocation of that. And that's why I asked that is, if it's not causing a problem and it's budgeted, then who's determining? Because now if it's saying, well, it's me personally don't appreciate it, well, that's a different conversation.
Which it really is. Like, I want to see our savings account like grow, where it sees like, oh, we're putting all this money into retirement savings, and like, it's not like we aren't saving. So I think we're at different places in terms of how much we want to save.
Yeah.
For
And
me,
that's
like,
really what it is.
totally empathize. Like, I don't have like the situation where my husband's making that much more than me, but we are like super different minded about money. And the budget, just doesn't work for him. Like, he's not going to do it. And he's like the guy Zach just said, like, he would go, like, if you come to Network Club, you know that he spends $600 a month on Starbucks and Sonic. That's drinks, y'all. Those are two places where you buy just drinks. Drinks. So, you know, we had to handle that. But one of the ways that we did it was by doing the pathway. Like, if there's more to it than just a budget, it's kind of like with your Rainmaker, right? Like, they don't care about the money until you help them see the value. So for him, it's like, look, like on our 5-year plan, we want 50 acres with live water on the Appalachian Trail. Like, that's like our second home. Like, that, to him, that's real. Like, he could get behind that a little bit. So there's like a pathway from here to there. But the other thing that we did too was we said, okay, like, we took what my budget was and we added what he wanted to spend without even a second thought. And we just made that the budget. So like, my coach was bringing me some heat on this because I handed her back my stuff, right? And she's like, this is a round number. Like, no one in the face of the world ever has like a round number for a budget. I'm like, but we do, because when we get to that amount, we're done spending. But he could go spend it on whatever he wants. Like, man, if you want $1,000 worth of Starbucks, it's all you, buddy. Like, go get it. And I just had to be okay with that, even though in my heart I'm like, that's drinks. What are you spending on drinks for? What could we have bought with all that money on drinks? But that's it. That's the life he wants to live. So it was hard for me to get on board with at first, but eventually I was like, you know, that's fair. Like, if I wanted to go spend $1,000, like $12,000 for the year on a remodel or put it into savings, like, that was coming from me. What he wanted to do with it wasn't that. So we had to compromise. So I had to spend less on what I wanted, even if it was savings or investment, which benefits everybody. And he had to, you know, compromise too and have a budget. Like, once we hit it, there's no more spending. Like, we're not putting more money into our spend account. So it's done. So I think it's hard. Like, I don't think there's a one size fits all answer. It's like, you just have to figure out what you're both willing and able to do. Because, yeah, there have been times in our life when we could not have afforded even like 50 cents in Starbucks drinks. So the fact that he can just go spend $600 in Starbucks drinks, like, all right, buddy, like, that's important to you. So
Yeah. go get it. And that's where I really think viewing it as prioritizing your money and what you want to do with it. I don't necessarily agree with everything Dave Ramsey says. And yet, I mean, at the end of the day, though, I think the great point is prioritizing what you want your money to do for you. And that's why, Liz, I don't think there's a one size fit all, like Megan said. I think there's a great opportunity, though, for you to sit down and be like, this is my goal. What is your goal? And what can we do to get us there? Right? Like, what type of steps, actions can we take so we're both getting what we want and not coming from a place of judgment. If they say, I want to spend X number of dollars from Amazon, then it's great. I want to save this number, which is the same thing as spending money in Amazon, just for me. How do we get there?
And I think to your point, Zach, like, the thing that made it feel better for me was that, like, once I knew that he knew, right? Like, when we didn't have that clarity, I was just like, what the hell, man? Like, what'd you spend it on this time? Like another Starbucks trip. Then it was like frustration between us. But once it was like, okay, you're spending $600 a month on Starbucks and Sonic, and he was like, yeah, and I want to, then it was like, oh, it wasn't just like you're being, you know, dumb with money and doing it and you don't know. He was like, yeah, this is how I want to spend my money. So that clicked, that changed it for me, because I was like, oh, well, sure, like you're an adult, you should get to spend your money how you want to spend it. So as long as you know and you're choosing to do that.
And you have it to spend.
And you have it to spend. Yeah. We're not putting $600 worth of Starbucks on a credit card.
That's a
Or
different
if you are, you're
conversation.
paying it off every month.
But see, but that's another different conversation where now that's based on someone's point of view and what they're prioritizing is important, right? And we make a lot of assumptions when we go through that, and that's, you know, and we kind of develop that. Where I'm the same way. Like, is that some of that stuff necessary? No, but that's also my perspective. That's not everyone's perspective in life.
Yeah, that was hard for me though, y'all. It sounds easy now because I'm like on the other side of it, but going through it, I was like, but why?
That is brilliant. I didn't struggle with it that much because I was like, there's a real easy thing to this. I'm just not going to pay attention to it. Here's your money. And I was like, I'm not going to look at it or ask questions or anything. Yeah.
Yeah, you got some of the same heat. We have the same coach. He got some of the same heat from his coach because it was like, this is a round number. We're like, we know. It's on purpose. Their spouse is involved.
I did indeed. I did indeed.
Gary Keller always says, you know, the whole quantum leap thing. Like, it's not that people don't know to take this to the next thing. Like, once you have your budgets, it's not that people don't know or don't have the money to invest. It's that they don't know what they would invest in if they did have the money. I definitely think there's some of that on my husband's side too. But just for instance, do you guys know what you would invest in? Like, do you know what a good investment would be for you, that if you walked on it tomorrow, you would want to, and you would want to take advantage of it?
Ray's in there now.
I was like,
I mean, I'd love to get a rental house, but I'm kind of terrified to see what the rental market, what it's going to do. I know the interest rates, and we've got a great market for it, but for the economy, if I put a renter in there and then they lose their job, you know, making sure that mortgage is going to get paid and just that overhead. And I would have, you know, multiple months saved up just in case that kind of thing happened, but it's a gut feeling I keep, you know, just at the pit of my stomach about. So
do you, like, could you describe the house though? Like, do you know what it is and where it is and how much it would cost? If you walked across it, you would be like, that's the house?
oh yeah, I bring a house usually like once a week to Carrie and be like, hey, what about this one? She's like, good, maybe not in the area, or, you know, because we've got a med school here and, you know, a few colleges. So yeah, I've got the area, the price range, you know, the look I want. So, and that's where it's just like, if I could move into it, I want it safe enough, you know, that I can move into it, even, you know, even for a few months to remodel a bathroom or something. So just some things like that, but it would be safe enough for me, but isn't going to get trashed completely. So just kind of the smarts of it, but that's just what I keep going back to, making sure that, you know, if the person loses their job, are they going to pay their rent, you know, and just going through like the laws of eviction and all that fun stuff. So just got to think through.
I love though that, like, did y'all catch that? Write that down. Like, she's taking a property to someone else who's like a proven investor and saying, hey, is this, like, would you invest in this? Like that, there is no better way to get good at figuring out what a good investment is in your area. Like, that's awesome. That's incredible.
No, I don't know what it would look like. However, I was realizing today, because I'm always looking for properties, and I found one. I was like, oh, it's on the water. This would be good Airbnb. And I was like, if it's on the MLS, it's not a good value. Like, to invest, it needs to be probably below market value. So I realize that I need to get better at figuring out how to go after those properties that aren't on the market. However, I know that when I find something, our team is a good place to be, because we have 3 of the agents on our team have investment like rentals themselves. 2 of them have flipped homes. Like my Rainmaker's, I mean, before he was an agent, he was, you know, a real estate investor. So I'm grateful because I've got all the experience there. I need to get better at figuring out how to source the properties, really.
What's amazing to me, because my husband and I have flipped 3 properties, bought them all off market. And this was all when I was running the team. They didn't come through the team. It was amazing to me how when I was ready for that, they just materialized. So again, it's a reminder that when you do what Megan just said, like you have it visualized, you're financially ready, like everything's in place, it'll just appear. All 3 properties came through our sphere.
Nice.
How'd you find out about them, Paula? Were you like calling people or?
No, one was across the street from us. So we flipped the house across the street from us. One was a friend whose parent had died, and just were like, we had their house. They knew I was in real estate. Like, we don't know what to do with this. And it ended up working out great because we took care of, you know, really getting the stuff out of the house for them. Yeah.
Sweet.
I really want to buy the house next door. I know that the woman who lives there is old. We've never actually been able to talk to her. However, the lot's really wooded, and I don't want someone to buy it up and cut down all the trees.
Sounds like
So I would love to buy that one. Maybe renovate and rent the house. And
Yeah. Drop her a note in the mailbox. That's what I think.
Mine recently changed because my stepson, who's 21, is looking for a home. So after having essentially the quantum leap conversation with him, I have him looking into duplexes. In Ohio, we call them doubles. I don't know if they call them anywhere else, but
No.
we do here. Yeah. Nicole Zuber, my head coach, looked at me weird when I said a double. I'm like, it's just duplex. It's what we call them in Ohio. Anyway, at least from the
yeah, I didn't know that was weird.
You call them that too?
Double. I'm in Ohio too.
Well,
Double,
I know, but
triple.
I'm just saying I'm in Mansfield. I'm more towards the center, but yeah, it's all of Ohio. See, there you have it. Liz and I voted double.
never heard that term before.
Either.
I mean, I didn't think it was complicated, but my coach looked at me like I just gave her like, I was like, what? A double, 2. All right. So, but we've been looking at that, right? And having that same conversation. So my criteria has actually changed because for him, I was like, well, you should get into a duplex, right? So that you can have someone paying for that half of you. So I think there's a real opportunity too, to talk to those younger couples that maybe are even in our databases and personal lives, and even us personally, and looking at that, right? If we're thinking about doing that and going that route. As MREI says, everyone's an investor. It's just a matter if you take advantage of it or not.
And actually, one of my goals is to either buy duplexes for my boys or have the down payment for them to buy a duplex when they turn 18 and move out of the house.
That's awesome. You're just talking to me. You can say double. It's all right.
But to your point earlier, Liz, like, I don't know about y'all's market, but in our market, if you want a double, see, I can learn fast. You're never going to get it on the MLS. Like, they don't hit the MLS. They sell way before, because it's just like the rental market here is really hot. So it's an instant. I mean, they're like not hotcakes. So you have to be looking like one step ahead of the market in order to find one. And then, what do you do? I guess in Paula's case, work your spirit. Anyone have a personal financial goal you're aiming for that you would like to brainstorm or work on in the collective while you've got the group mind? Usually when you object that much, Ray, it means like there's actually a yes hidden in there.
No, that was me trying to figure out how to talk to you about something that Greg just spewed at me. So I was like, do I want, this is not the place for that. So no, I was saying, no, don't do it right here.
I got you. You're telling yourself no.
Yes.
Self-control. I dig it. Sheila, you're awful quiet today.
I am very quiet. So I'm a single person, so I don't have the, spouse person. It's all on me to figure out what to do with my money. And I'm doing the same thing that like Hannah did, is trying to Dave Ramsey my life digitally, because I really don't want to carry around envelopes full of cash. That sounds awful. And my goal right now is to get into a duplex. I've, talked to the lender, and there's a couple of things that I have to clean up from a previous life. But, by the spring, I'll be good to go. So that's, you guys have just been saying the same stuff that I've been thinking. I'm like, well, I don't really need to say it if you guys all said the same stuff.
Love that though. So smart.
There's always something to learn. It's much more impactful when we hear it from you. So I appreciate you sharing.
Chamberlain, Audrey? Bring it on, ladies. Bring us home. What you got?
Audrey was stuffing pumpkins for a client
I'm
event.
now driving.
Oh, you're now driving. Oh, gosh.
Yeah. I think myself, I need to focus more on investing with my stockbroker, because I have my IRA sitting there and I haven't touched it in a really long time. So I'm curious if you guys have resources on how to educate yourself on that sort of thing.
Like, is your IRA self-directed?
It's literally cash sitting there right now.
I would suggest
I think
going and talking to a couple different financial planners. Like, they'll educate you on all of that and give you ideas that maybe you haven't even thought of. And it's not like you need a ton of money to go talk to one.
Okay. Yeah, that's been my goal. I think by the end of the year, I need to get that done. I think I need a new financial person too, because he doesn't respond to my emails.
Oh yeah, that's not a good one.
Time to top grade for sure.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yep, I think so.
And it's good to talk to more than one, because it's amazing how you'll get very different perspectives. Like, the 80% of what they say is the same, and then like 20% is different, and you're like, oh, I had never thought about that.
Like, incredibly different. I put out on Facebook a couple months ago just like a call for who's got a great financial advisor. I mean, in the era of COVID, as long as they're licensed in your state, doesn't matter where they live. So I have been on this journey, like interviewing so many, and it's incredible. I had not realized like how a different specialty in that field could take you really like super far different directions. So that's been an incredible experience just for me, like an educational experience, just interviewing all these different advisors who have like a specialty. So they're obviously trying to like say, here would be the strategy for your money. So different than like this other dude who's got a different specialty. So yeah, I think that's I never really realized in my head they're all the same, which is I guess what everybody thinks of real estate agents, you know, just like a financial advisor is just a financial advisor. They're super different. Like, whoa.
Yeah. I have a family corporation that I'm on the board for and on their finance committee too. And it's always been very intimidating because they have 3 different accounts with completely different strategies. And it just doesn't make sense. So I think it's one of those things that I need to start educating myself on, like what the different indexes are and how it works and that sort of thing.
Love that goal.
Cool. Thank you all.